this thing working? Give me some sound over here.
Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
The Out of Bounds Show brought to you by Ag Up Equipment. That's where you go, any of their dealerships, to get your John Deere tractor for your farm, family land, or hunting camp. AgUp.com to find a dealership nearest you. John Deere, America's tractor. Ag Up Equipment, 18 locations. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, including Canton and Pearl. AgUp.com. Steve Robertson stops by to preview the Golden Egg Thursday night in Oxford. Ole Miss is a 3-point favorite. I mean, when you looked at Circa, they were a 5-point favorite. Caesars 2.5, so 3.5, however you want to run the numbers. Mike Leach is 0 for 2 in this game, and the Hail State fan base is getting antsy. And so we welcome in Steve Robertson, 247 Sports and Gene's page on the Out of Bounds Show and the Yingling Lager guest line. Steve, what does Mississippi State have to do to win the Golden Egg on Thursday night other than score one more point than Ole Miss?
Well, I think you got to do what you can to slow down this running game. I mean, you're not going to be able to stop it. Really, nobody has this year. I mean, Alabama had some level of success with it, but, this is a very, very, very skilled running game, and a lot of it starts with Jackson Dart. I mean, he is a plus runner. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to beat you in a track meet, but the guy's really, really athletic, and he can beat you. It's not a situation where he runs enough to keep you honest. He is a real weapon as a runner, and so I think you got to negate that quarterback run as best you can, and hopefully kind of make him be, more of a quarterback rather than just a facilitator of this ground game. Because even in what you saw. As dominant as Arkansas appeared to be in that ball game, and I know Ole Miss put some big yards up late, they just couldn't finish some drives. It wasn't like that Arkansas was getting stops. A lot of that was kind of Ole Miss's own ineptitude, and they had a couple of bad calls that went against Ole Miss, and you hate to see that. But the reality of it is that this is a ground game that is among the best in the country, and that's where I think job one is for Mississippi State. You're not going to stop it, but you got to find a way to try to contain it.
Okay, so what does Zach – all right, is – Tyrus Wheat left the game at 35-0, and he hobbled off the field. East Tennessee State ran a running play to towards the Mississippi State sideline. He was involved in the tackle. He limps off the field. It didn't look good. I know Leach doesn't say anything about injuries. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was told post-game that everybody's going to be fine. Of course, that's kind of standard protocol, but hopefully we'll get a little more clarification today. But, we're not going to get anything in a press conference, but sometimes just being around things, around the complex, you kind of figure some things out or you hear some things. But, we're told everybody's going to be good to go, that it wasn't anything serious. But, I agree with you. It's like, especially at that point in the ball game, you just kind of, get them out. And at no point, it seems it's never too early in a game like that to get them out. But, we're hearing he's going to be available, but like everything else with these injuries, we'll kind of figure it out as we go along.
Okay, what does Zach Arnett do then? How does he, if Tyrus Wheat is healthy, how does he approach this game with Zach Evans now healthy, and you just mentioned Judkins and Dart?
Yeah, I don't know that Evans is 100% yet, but he looked a lot closer to his previous form, pre-injury form. Against Arkansas on Saturday. And, that's the thing, too. A lot of people expected him to come in and be the guy, and he's actually become kind of the complimentary guy to Judkins, who has been outstanding, probably a first-team All-American, freshman All-American this year. I mean, and certainly deserving of that honor. But, I think one of the things that I wonder about is, State does so much middle blitz, and I think that's probably not the way to go on this, because like ordinarily you'd want to get in a quarterback space and kind of get him to flesh out. I think that's what Dart wants you to do. I think Dart wants to get outside so he can create. So I think what you see is a little more off the edge. I think maybe you bring some things and show some front side pressure, maybe you bring backside. They've got to alternate things up, and they've got to probably change their coverages a little bit just to kind of put him in a decision-making process, because I think he's a guy, if you push him up the middle, he'll just roll outside and you lose contain. It's going to be a big play.
On the flip side, what can Leach do against the Ole Miss? All right, so and you expect Zach Arnett to commit at least one more guy in the box, right? On his 3-3-5.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I don't know where the guy lines up, but, you've got to be able to walk some people down because, and listen, Dart's a good passer, don't get me wrong, but he's not a guy that's going to sit back there and pick you apart. But, I think when he's at his best is when you kind of give him that option. It's in many respects, it's kind of like the way they used Bo Wallace, back, with Freeze, because he's athletic enough that if something breaks down, he can take off and go make you play. You can do some design quarterback runs. He gives you a lot of options, especially in this time of spread offenses. I think Dart's actually probably exceeded expectations. I know some people expected a lot from him, but I think he's been even better, and mainly as a runner. But he is more than an adequate passer, so you can't just sell out for the run.
Let's flip over to Leach against Partridge. This Mississippi State offense to me looks really ordinary. And they've abandoned the run. I don't know if Dylan Johnson – I don't know why they even played him 2 to 3 snaps a game against Georgia and East Tennessee. It didn't really make sense, but a lot of what they've done hasn't made sense. I guess, do you think Dylan Johnson will be healthy, and what do you think Leach's approach will be on offense to Ole Miss's defense?
Yeah, I do think DJ will be ready to go. Of course, he, like you said, he played sparingly against Georgia. Did not play against East Tennessee State. But
I thought he got 2 snaps. Okay, he didn't play. All right, cool.
I may have missed it, but I don't believe that he played. But
okay.
But yeah, I think what you have to do, I think you got to be able to go out there and run the football more effectively, and they haven't done it as much as of late. And again, some of that is because DJ's been a little bit banged up, and at that point, so is Marks too. But when you look at this Ole Miss rush defense, and granted, State doesn't have a rocket, like Arkansas does, but you've got to be able to keep them honest. You got to be able to stop them from just pinning their ears back and pass rushing every single play. You got to give them at least that half moments of hesitation. Hey, I don't need to get upfield here because they may gash us underneath on a trap or something like that. So State has got to be able to run the football. I'm not saying you got to be balanced, but you've got to give the defense something else to think about. I think that also puts pressure and stress on those linebackers, and that could potentially open up some crossing routes. But I think the weather is going to be a real interesting thing in this, and maybe not for the reason that some people expect. I think that, if it's going to be a steady rain in the 40s, there's not going to be anybody there. When you think about going to watch this game, it's Thanksgiving already, and then you got to go sit in the a steady rain with the temperatures in the 40s. I think a lot of people, especially maybe more casual fans, are going to stay home, and I think that negates the home field advantage in many respects. And so that'll be awfully interesting. How many people actually turn out for the ball game and how that impacts the game. And I think if you begin to think about the elements themselves and then the fact that it could be a rather subdued crowd, that could bode well for Mississippi State.
Durkin bottled up Leach pretty well the last 2 years. Now Partridge is there. Do you expect them to go rush 3, drop 8, or bring some more people down in the box to mess with Will Rogers? How do you see that?
I expect to see probably, again, the Ole Miss pass rush is a good pass rush. It's maybe not elite like some of the other ones that you see in the conference, like the Alabamas and the Georgias, but I think they'll try to kind of mimic some of that same stuff too. I think they'll change it up. You can't just do one thing because at some point, Will Rogers will figure out what you're doing and they'll just work around you. But I think especially on third down, you're going to see a ton of pressure. One of the things I've noticed too with some teams this year, and namely Kentucky, is they brought a ton of pressure on second down. So it's like you went on first down, then you blitz on second down to try to force a third long. And so I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see, if Ole Miss tries to maybe follow that same philosophy. But I don't think there's just one defensive, scheme that you try this game, just because of the fact that I think they want to be able to dictate terms to this. And if you just go drop 8, then State will just run the football. So I think what State has to do is make Ole Miss adjust, not just sit back and say, okay, well, we're just going to adjust what their adjustments are. It's going to determine what we do. I think State's got to try to go dictate terms and make Ole Miss be the team that has to kind of counter.
And then I think Ole Miss has the significant advantage on special teams.
Well, you never know what you're going to get with Mississippi State. I don't know how anybody could argue that State's ever going to win a special teams battle. But the one thing I will say is that I think the return game favors Mississippi State. I mean, Tula Griffin's potentially going to be an All-American as a kick returner, and it depends on how many times that Ole Miss kicks off. And now all of a sudden you begin to think about it's not going to be the best of circumstances how many of these kickoffs make the end zone. And so if Tula Griffin gets the opportunity to return some, that could be a really impactful part of the ballgame.
So my text line tells me people are about 50-50 on Leach. But he's not going anywhere, even if he loses a third straight golden egg. How warm and hot do you expect it to be, though, in the offseason if he and his staff don't get it done on Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, I think it never boils down to one ball game, but Bo, a lot of times it does, in a manner of speaking. And so, yeah, I think you lose this egg ball. I think you go into next year, on the hot seat. I think you basically got to have a huge year next year, and of course you get 8 home games next year, and the 4 road games you have within the league are basically toss-up games. So yeah, you get a chance to have a big year next year, but next year's next year. State has an opportunity right now to win the egg, get it back, get some juice in the program, finish the year with the same record as Ole Miss, which was, a lot of people thought earlier in the year, that Ole Miss had a chance to win the West, and you end up with the same record. Then you could kind of argue that, hey, we're heading in the right direction now. But, Mike Leach has never been a guy that's been extremely good in rivalry games since he left Texas Tech. I mean, he used to own Texas A&M, but he didn't do a great job against Washington, and he's 0-2 against Ole Miss. And so you got to turn that thing around. But I think everybody in that building understands this isn't just another game. I think maybe when you get here, you don't fully appreciate the intensity, of an Egg Bowl until you coached in one. And I had one of our staffers tell me when they went up there in 2020, he goes, yeah, I get it now. They didn't get it before then. He goes, he's just walking out there on the field. He said, you could just feel the bitterness and the hatred. And he goes, I don't know that I had maybe fully appreciated that until I played up there.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So a lot on the line for Leach and his staff on Thursday night. And I think the questions are, is Tyrus Wheat healthy and is Dylan Johnson healthy? Any others that jump out at you, Steve?
Yeah, not that we're aware of, but, of course, just like when Deshaun Page had surgery, it's like nobody knew that he was banged up, and all of a sudden he's posted on Instagram, but he's recovered. And, of course, he has come back and has played well for Mississippi State. But they're really tight-lipped about injuries, and I think that kind of goes all the way down to even the support staff people. I mean, Leach does not want to talk about injuries, and his people understand that they do not want to put information out there about student-athlete health. And so you just simply never know. But at this point, we're not aware of any other issues. Didn't see anything else on the field that was a cause for concern, but we're all going to learn together, Bo.
Yeah, and the Tyrus Wheat thing could really change the deal. I mean, he's just about your only really good edge rusher, and you don't have him. And you were talking about pressure instead of interior pressure coming from the edge and setting the edge and all that. That'll be something to keep an eye on. Also, explosive plays. Ole Miss has been they have generated explosive plays at an insane level. Arnett's done a pretty good job, but they have been subject to getting burned on big plays. What do they do to counter that, or at least try to slow that down?
Well, you got to pick gaps, you got to tackle, and that's early in the year, there were some big plays that were given up. And I think State's done a better job, maybe in the last few weeks of negating the big play. But, when that's the thing about this Ole Miss ground game is that you never really get a break, no matter who they bring in. That offensive line is playing well, of course. And, you may make a tackle on first down and you miss one on second. It's a third and short. Next thing you know, you just can't get off the field. And so State's got to tackle well. And you got to really get them down before they get going, because especially with Judkins, once he picks them up and puts them down, he's very, very difficult to tackle in the open field because he can run through arm tackles. And so really impressed with how he's played this year. And I think Mississippi State's got to be able to get some penetration. Run blitzes will be a big part of this too, but you got to be careful not to completely sell out to that, because again, Dart's such a good handler of the football, and that's probably an underrated skill in offenses like that. It's just the way that his ball handling works is that his play action fakes are really good, and he really carries everything out. He's really polished in that respect, and he shows putting that ball in the running back's belly, and it's like everybody bites, and he's so skilled at pulling that ball out and throwing it over the top of the linebacker's head. And so if you sell out, he can make you pay.
We'll leave it there. Steve Robertson, 247 Sports, Gene's Page, the Boneyard Podcast, previewing the Golden Egg game, MSU at Ole Miss, on Thursday night. Steve, we appreciate your time this week. Thanks, man.
See you, buddy.
All right, so Steve Robertson on the Golden Egg game, I don't sense a lot of confidence in the Mississippi State fan base. But then I think the Ole Miss confidence is taking a little bit of a hit with the Lane rumors, right?
It wouldn't matter near as much if you didn't just get dragged by Arkansas.
Yeah.
If you're 9-2 going into this game with a chance to still go 10-2, who cares about rumors? Who cares? But when you lose to Alabama, when you lose to Arkansas, the taste is not as nice. It's just not as nice.
But you can get it back with the win.
Yeah, it'd be a big win. 9-3 and Tennessee losing to Vanderbilt, you may have a chance to jump them because you'd both be 9-3.
It's true.
Then it would just kind of be a conference decision because technically there's no rule that says they have to go in a certain order. It's more like the conference negotiates that with the teams and with the bowl committees and things like that. Because we've seen State and Ole Miss go to different bowls sometimes when you didn't necessarily expect it based on the way that they don't like. State had that span where they went to the Gator Bowl so much, and so there was a year they got bumped out of the Gator Bowl that they went to a lower bowl, quote unquote. But that was because the Gator Bowl is like, you've been here 3 times, we can't. Right. No one's going to show up.
Sure.
We can't take you.
People
again.
aren't showing up anyway, but you're exactly
But that
right.
was when people still were kind of showing up, I guess, in theory.
Boy, we're trending as far as bowl attendance. Oh, my God.
Because why would, other than if it's a first-time experience, or you're a young fan, you haven't gone, or you have a young child, say young, even 10, 11, 12, 15, that hasn't gone to that experience, I get that. Like, I think everyone should go to a bowl game because it's fun.
Yeah.
Take your family, take friends, have the experience. Like, but you want it to be, it's almost all about what you're doing around the bowl game, and you just hope you win the game. Right? Because that makes the flavor better. The trip is more fun.
It is.
But in reality, we
winning.
don't. Yeah.
They have been devalued to the point of it's really weird. But it still wasn't a good taste last year for Ole Miss and Mississippi State to lose their bowl games.
You feel better than most of the teams you play in lower bowls as part of the catch.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you're not playing high-end teams. You might be playing a team from a Power 5 conference, but they're usually not. I mean, we like, again, pulling Indiana or pulling Louisville.
Ole Miss pulled Baylor in the Sugar Bowl.
That was Baylor playing out of their minds that year.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an elite football program. No. Exactly. I mean, it's State getting beat by Iowa. That was like Moorhead losing to Iowa. That's not a good Iowa team.
No.
But and so when you face that type of team and you lose, because you can lose. It's like playing a mid-major in basketball. They're not elite dynamic by any means, but if they're better coached than you.
It's a one-off.
And if they're better
on
coached
a neutral
than you.
field, and our teams play such big-name teams during the season.
Correct.
It is hard to sell your team on a Texas Tech and a Baylor and get, like, super fired up. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And the talent profile, the brand profile,
but
they never match up.
It's a huge game for that Texas Tech or Baylor team.
Correct.
Or Iowa team.
Or Tulsa or whoever else you want to put in that gets to play an SEC program.
When TCU dinged Ole Miss.
It's why Central Florida lost their mind because they beat an Ed Orgeron coached or non-Ed Orgeron coached bowl team last year, right? Like, we beat – whatever it was a year or two ago. We beat LSU like, oh, yeah, you played a shell of an LSU team. Like, don't – but for that program, for Central Florida, for Texas Tech, for those programs, it's the biggest win of the year.
For those kids at that time.
Yeah. And for the fan base, it's the longest off. There's nothing like losing going into your bye week because you have to wait an extra week. But losing going into the offseason, it hurts. You want to end on a positive. Even if it's the freaking Belk Bowl, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You just want to go out. You want to feel some type of way. Hey, we beat our rival and we won a bowl game. Like, all right. Like,
your beer,
positivity.
bourbon, or sweet tea is better.
Yes. Christmas break it just feels better.
If you win.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, speaking of winning, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, 40-30 over Minnesota yesterday.
Dominant.
And Dak looked good. Tony Pollard looked good. Do you hear it's like crickets, Blake. I don't hear any of these guys who told us how great Zeke was.
Yeah.
It's now fading.
Well, Jerry will tell you this week on 105.3 The Fan. Yeah.
That's right. He's going to say that every time.
Yeah. Well, we didn't lose. We lost to Green Bay because Zeke was inactive, but we beat Minnesota because Zeke was active. So obviously, it's about Zeke. Hey, let me ask you this question.
Pollard had 109 receiving
He's
yards.
a freak. He's a freak. He's an absolute animal.
Including the beautiful pass
Yeah.
that Dak threw to him on the wheel route or whatever for 68 yards right in the breadbasket.
Yeah, talk about, too, how brutal it is to play defense in the NFL. That linebacker he was covering him as good as you could possibly cover him, and he still had no chance. He had
That's
no
true.
chance. How about this one, though? The Jets, Elijah Moore. You guys know Elijah Moore. He plays for the Jets, or at least he's on their roster. Doesn't play much. Zach Wilson and the Jets had 2 total yards of offense in the second half yesterday.
How do you do that?
They averaged 2.77 inches per play. 2.77 inches per play. If Dak Prescott or Eli Manning when he was in New York or Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs, if any of those players went a whole half averaging 2.77 inches per play, 2 total yards in a whole half of football.
Zach was 9 of 22 for 77 yards.
He missed dudes that were standing still wide open. Like, he couldn't even hit a guy standing still wide open.
If Dak played like that,
It's
it
incredible.
would be a meltdown on every national show.
Yeah, it would be incredible.
How do you only get 2 yards
An entire
and a
half.
in the NFL?
We think Iowa's bad on offense. We think Kentucky's bad on offense. Vanderbilt, even Mississippi State on the road in the SEC has been bad in offense.
Yeah.
They ain't been 2 yards and a half bad. It was some of the worst offensive football I've ever seen in my entire life. It was 3-3 until a game-winning punt return at the end of the game. It was 3-3. It was amazing.
He averaged 3.5 yards per completion.
For the entire game, yeah. Absolutely. It's bonkers bad offense. Bonkers bad offense for
And
Zach
I think
Wilson.
they have a good coach.
Well, it makes you ask the question, can guys like Matt Corral, can guys like, even a Hendon Hooker or that knee injury, you hate that. But guys that it makes you go like, how is Zach Wilson better than some of these guys, right?
Yeah, if Matt Corral was healthy, yeah, I'm leaning towards Matt being a much better option than Zach Wilson.
It's just funny how you get that. We talk about this with Steve Palazzolo. You get that nod as a first-round guy. But we see it in college football, to bring it full circle, with like the AP poll. You get this automatic gift of like, you can lose a game or even 2 and not fall out if you start there. But heaven forbid you start outside it and try to work your way up.
It's really the Michigan's always going to get the 15-spot bump.
Texas gets a bump every year.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Or the Alabama bump. I mean, Alabama's a 2-loss program. They're not bad. There probably aren't 20 teams better than them. But at the same time, do they deserve to be number 8?
Yes.
It's funny.
They do. The Out of Bounds Show.
Put some respect on TCU's name.
ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Is brought to you by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Visit MississippiSportsMedicine.com, Fortification and Lakeland Drive. Flowood is where they have their new surgery center and clinic. Also, if you want to upgrade your entertainment system at your home, MSHomes.com. MSSmartHomes.com. Jake Manning will take care of you. If you want to take it to another level, MSSmartHomes.com. If you missed anything, go to Apple Podcasts, search the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. We'll see you tomorrow.